Sound of a heavy steel door slamming shut, echoing. The first thing that hits you isn't the smell or the cold, it's the sound. The sound of 1,000 forgotten souls whispering in the drafts. My name is Leo, and this story isn't from some horror movie. This was my life for 5 years, inside the walls of Blackwood Penitentiary, a place older than the state itself, a place where the walls seemed to breathe. I wasn't a hardened criminal, just a kid who made a stupid, life-altering mistake. The judge's words echoed in my head as they slapped the cuffs on me. You need to learn a hard lesson, son. He had no idea. Blackwood wasn't just about learning a lesson, it was about survival, and not just from the other inmates. My cell was in D Block, the oldest part of the prison. Locals called it the Whisper Ward for a reason. My cellmate, an old-timer named Silas who'd been there for 30 years, gave me the only advice that mattered on my first night. Keep your eyes down, your mouth shut, and no matter what you hear after lights out, you don't answer. He pointed a shaky finger towards the far end of our cell, where the stone was darker, almost black. That's Old Man Hemlock's spot, he rasped. He was the first one in this cell, back in 1890. Hanged himself right there from the window bar. They say he never left. I thought he was just trying to scare the new guy. I was wrong. The first few weeks were a blur of routine and low-level dread. The shouting, the clanging of metal, the constant tension. You get used to it. But you never get used to the nights in D Block. After the final count and the lights went out, a different kind of silence fell. A heavy, listening silence. That's when I'd hear it. A faint scratching from the corner. Asterisk S08. Ripe. Asterisk like a fingernail dragging slowly down stone. I'd pull my thin blanket over my head. My heart hammering against my ribs. Remembering Silas's warning, don't answer, don't acknowledge it. One night, the scratching was louder, more frantic. It was followed by a low whisper, so quiet I thought I was imagining it. It sounded like it was right beside my bunk. So cold. It hissed, a dry, rattling sound. I squeezed my eyes shut, sweat beading on my forehead. Silas was snoring softly in the bunk below, oblivious. Or maybe just pretending to be. The next day, a guy named Marcus from the cell across the hall was a mess. His eyes were wide, and he kept looking over his shoulder. He told me at chow that he'd heard the whispers too. He made a fatal mistake. He whispered back. "Who's there?" He'd asked into the darkness. He said the air in his cell dropped 20 degrees, and he felt an icy grip on his ankle. He screamed for the guards, but by the time they got there was nothing to see. The only evidence was the raw, red marks on his skin. Everyone just said he was losing it. Prison does that to you. But I knew. I knew what he felt was real. The whispers, the scratching, the suffocating cold. It was Old Man Hemlock, still doing his time. He was looking for company. The nights got worse. I started having nightmares. I'd dream I was standing in the corner of my own cell, my feet not touching the floor, a rough rope around my neck. I'd wake up gasping, clutching my throat, the phantom pressure still there. Silas would just look at me with those weary, knowing eyes and shake his head. "He's getting curious about you, kid," he mumbled one morning. "You got too much life in you. He doesn't like that." The climax came during a lockdown. A fight in the yard meant we were confined to our cells for 48 hours straight. The tension in the block was a palpable thing, a living entity. By the second night, with no distractions, the presence in our cell felt stronger than ever. The scratching started right after lights out, but this time it wasn't from the corner. It was coming from right under my bunk. I froze, every muscle in my body screaming. Then, the whisper. "Let me in." It wasn't a question. It was a command. I could feel my mattress depressing slightly, as if something was pushing up from underneath. My breath hitched in my chest. I wanted to scream, to call for the guards, but my voice was gone. Trapped in my throat, I remembered Marcus. I remembered Silas's warning. I stayed silent. Tears silently streaming down my face, praying for sunrise. The pressure increased. I felt a chilling cold seep through the thin mattress, spreading across my back like a pool of ice water. The whisper came again, louder this time, filled with a desperate, ancient rage. "I know you're awake." Suddenly, Silas shot up in his bunk below me. "Leave him be, you miserable ghost," he yelled into the darkness. "His time ain't up. Go back to your corner." The cell plunged into an impossible cold. The air crackled. A guttural growl echoed off the stone walls, a sound of pure hatred that vibrated through my bones. I felt the pressure on my back vanish. The scratching stopped. The silence that followed was more terrifying than any noise. When the sun finally rose and the guards did their morning count, Silas was sitting on the edge of his bunk, looking a decade older. His hair, which had been salt and pepper, was almost completely white. He never spoke about what he did that night, and I never asked. He saved me. He confronted the darkness so I wouldn't have to. I served the rest of my sentence in a state of constant vigilance, never letting my guard down, especially at night. The scratching and whispers never returned to my cell, but sometimes, on the quietest nights, I could hear them from other cells down the block. A new inmate, another curious soul. When the day of my release finally came, I walked out of Blackwood without looking back. The sunlight felt strange, the open air almost suffocating after years of confinement. But even now, years later, living a normal life, there are nights when I wake up in a cold sweat, the phantom feeling of a rope around my neck, and a dry, rattling whisper echoing in my memory, "Let me in." Some prisons hold your body. Others, like Blackwood, hold a piece of your soul, and they never, ever let it go. Thanks for listening to my story. It's important to remember that our choices can lead us to dark places. But it's the strength we find within, and sometimes from others, that helps us see the light again. If you found this story compelling, please hit that like button, subscribe for more animated stories, and ring that bell so you don't miss the next one. Stay safe out there.